Hello, everyone. This is Father Michael Tischel,
And this is Strati.
and we are an Imperfect Podcast.
Oh, sorry, we're an Imperfect Podcast.
Ah, yes. Delayed release.
So silly.
Cue music. Beautiful. Well, Strati,
Yes.
good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. It's been a little while, hasn't it?
It's been a little while. But that's okay. We're here.
Indeed.
We're here, and we're excited to talk to each other and our esteemed silent friends on the other side.
Right. Who have virtually no voice.
No voice. Voiceless mass.
They can write a comment.
So we're grateful that you entertain our podcast, listen to us and put up with us. And But today we've got an interesting topic. So
very topical topic.
Yes, indeed, truly topical.
Yeah.
So tell us what we're talking about.
Well, we're going to discuss the way you put it. I loved it. Ortho-Battles on the internet.
That's it. Yep.
Ortho-Battles on the internet. Just the word ortho, combine it with another word, and we're already on the internet.
Yeah, it gets us on that wavelength, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Absolutely. Yep. Ortho anything is a very
ortho. Yeah. What was it? Yeah, there's any combination. In Greece, actually, they call them like Orthodox jihadists.
Right.
But that's not in an internet aspect. That's just like
what
they call extreme zealots.
The general mindset of people.
Yeah. Extreme zealotry, where they go off the deep end and.
Right. Well, let me ask you, Strati, because you've dedicated your life and career to TrisagionFilms, and much of, if not most of which, happens online. I mean, obviously, when you're editing and shooting the films and stuff like that, there's kind of a hybrid element there, but it is for the ultimate purpose of posting these videos online, and kind of you've over the years you've built up and kind of cultivated a really significant community online, and especially with like the live stream services and things like that. I mean, I think there's a real ministry specifically during our time of COVID that is allowing people to connect with the church.
I need to get back on that. Doing the Instagram lives.
Sure.
It got, but this goes along with our topic. It got too much.
Yeah.
Because everyone's a theologian,
right.
And the 13-year-old that read a couple books and now they're telling you the meaning of life,
Yeah.
And the problem is that a lot of times, like there's no hierarchy,
right,
on the internet. It's truly just whoever you stumble on,
right,
and their credentials, they might not have any, and that's actually a huge topic, the topic of the mob, or the ochlos, the mob kind of following the loudest person. And that's true in reality, but on the internet it's even more sort of dangerous and powerful, because anybody can sit in front of their bedroom and go online, and suddenly they're transported to India, they're in Tibet suddenly, whereas the reality is, well, I don't know, Marietta, Georgia, or Valjevo, Serbia.
Yeah, it's a very, at least promises to be a very kind of transcendent experience, in that you can kind of, you can fly to other places in space, maybe not necessarily in time, although I guess you could argue that if you're in a different time zone, you're
watching stuff from years ago.
Yeah.
In a way, you're watching all of time, not all of time, but since
right. It's capturing a very kind of,
you can watch on YouTube, you can watch footage from like the early 19th, late 18th century if you want. Like anything is on there.
It's all there. Yep, it's all there. So what has your experience been over the years, just as far as?
Well, I've only really recently gotten online.
Mm-hmm.
I was not interested in because I didn't need to go online to discover about Orthodoxy. I had Father Panayotti, I had books. I didn't need to go online and listen to a lecture, a sermon, or anything really, or go into a group chat with a bunch of Orthodox people, young people usually, to talk about ideas. So for me, when I first got into it, it was kind of shocking and kind of scary.
Right.
Because
what sense?
How well, without getting too specific, it becomes scary when you see, okay, well, I'll put it this way. I was saying this last night. You go from the extreme of a Nazi down to the complete other spectrum to a, I don't know, person who doesn't believe at all or something. I don't know. I'm trying to think of from a Nazi to a normal person, we'll say. And then beyond that, you have, of course, the much more liberal side. But as far as Orthodox Christians go, it goes from, and the Nazi thing, I can't downplay that enough. There are people on the internet who are racist. They are hate mongers, and they're claiming to be Orthodox Christians.
Right.
And it's just a large room of just yelling and debating, and everybody's fighting with each other, and there's also group mentality, they're not looking, well, they are and they aren't, it depends. But they're not going to ask the questions from a spiritual father. They're not coming to TrisagionFilms to ask. Of course, my father can only do so much. He's one person, but there's many others that they could be going to.
Sure. And
instead, they go to these Instagram chats to ask peers, essentially, who are 20 about Orthodoxy. And the 20-year-olds speak with such firm, conviction about what they're saying. But if you kind of poke it a little bit, they're like, well, I think. Well, what do you mean you think? You know you think. And it's different than saying, well, I need to check, but I believe this is, but it depends on what you're saying in that point. If you're saying something big, then you can't do that. You have to, you have to be sure about it.
Sure. So why does that sadden you?
Well, because we're talking about Orthodoxy. Because we're talking about the truth itself.
And it trivializes it and kind of relativizes it, and
it does all that, but it also confuses people.
Right.
Above all, it confuses people. They're just confused. They're and I'm doing this without saying names, without saying topics, without saying anything, because it's so touchy. We post one thing, and I'll say it, about toll houses. And we are invaded by a horde of angry people.
Right.
Over toll houses.
Right.
And they're invading our Facebook page or Instagram or whatever and yelling at us and insulting us. And they don't do that to just us. They do it to a lot of people. I was looking at a friend of mine, Boyan, and the same thing. I was looking at the Twitter. He was on Twitter, and somebody was using obscenities at him. Right. Just because they don't like some of his opinions.
Right. It's sort of all bets are off. There's no sense of respect or
Not really.
Trying to have kind of a civil conversation, or
Yeah, it's tough, and I've engaged, and I've seen people who become irreverent, and I usually just kind of mess with them. What was it? One day they were saying, you're probably Masons, here at the TrisagionFilms. You probably Freemasons. And I said, who are great Masons? The ancient Mycenaeans. Now, those were. Have you seen their city? That's what.
There we go. Yep.
Now, those were Masons.
Oh man.
I don't think too many people found it funny.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny.
We need to be able to find humor in things, and as long as we're finding it, it doesn't matter who else finds it.
Yeah.
Oh man.
They're ready to go on a crusade to Jerusalem, but they'll talk about it all day. But when are they going to go and do that?
Right.
Full of that kind of stuff.
So is the internet? I mean, I often think of the internet, just like as the Wild West, right? It's like, it's like you can find anything. It's wild. It's dangerous. It's, but it seems so mild in a certain sense, right? I mean, I access it through the comfort of my own home.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the internet itself that's evil. There are places on the internet that become toxic. Sure. You know what I mean? So sure, you and I, generally speaking, we only go to the places we're going to be happy with.
Right.
And but then that there are people that tell me about just the most. I mean, I'm in the Orthodox world now. I'm not even going to go into the rest of the world. Just the most unchristian behavior by Orthodox Christians, or that's the other thing. And I say this, and I don't mean to put everybody in the same basket when I say this. Yeah. Or in the same whatever. Right. I think the following thing I'm going to say, like the problem with people who are not even Orthodoxy yet, preaching to other people about Orthodox, they're not even baptized and confirmed yet. Right. Which, it's a touchy subject, or rather there's a thin line, I think, because I think that some people, depending on what they talk about, can. Sure. It's not to say that anybody who does that is wrong, but at the same time, I think it takes a maturity, and it takes a level of knowledge that it and faith and spirituality. Spirituality. I don't like using that word like that. Right. But a certain level of maturity, both spiritual and which is one reason why I needed to pull back a little bit. Sure. Because I'm like, I just can't right now. The world has gone insane. COVID is bringing the worst out of people, and I need to let you all figure that out, and then I'll come back, to do my live stream. And that's a general thing, of course. It's not, topics about masks and church and this, that, and the other. And anyway, I've monopolized the. No, those. I mean, I think that's you have more experience with it than I do. So I mean, I can continue. The topic about masks in church. I mean, okay, I don't like the way it looks. I don't like the way it sort of feels like, you're in the church. Why are you treating it like you're in a hospital or, a plague area? Right. But at the same time, if we're going to actually be Orthodox in our behavior, we need to look to what the synods say. Mm-hmm. If the synods proclaim something, who are you to say, oh, well, no, Father whoever from Mount Athos said that that's evil, and the 666 has a microchip inside the mask. Right. And I'm being very honest, because that's just true. That's what people are saying. They're saying all those things. There's microchip in the masks. There's synodal Orthodox. I mean, our faith is synodal. I mean, the decisions in our faith is synodal. Right. So, if all the synods are coming out and saying, yes, if the state says wear a mask, it's okay. Right. It's okay. We don't love it, but go ahead. I mean, it's not a matter of dogma or something like that.
Yeah.
But people, we live in a very Protestant age, in a very individualistic age, where people are hearing a bishop who yells the loudest, against that, and they say, well, he's a holy man, he must know, he's and meanwhile, like, another holy man, quote unquote, I don't know, says that there's no problem, but nobody hears him. We're all hearing the one that yells really loudly.
Right.
And he knows who he is.
Right. Right.
And I think that's the danger of the internet, is that, if it, like, for instance, I had Father Panayotis, and Father Panayotis is not some sort of mystical sage, right, some sort of
like a magic 8-ball or something like that.
Yeah, he's not this magic 8-ball where he has every answer to everything,
right,
whatever.
Right.
He's not a wizard, let's say,
Right.
But okay, he has he's very well read. He's immersed himself in the patristic church.
Yep.
He's got good sense. He has, wisdom of many years of experience, etc., etc. So everybody needs somebody like that to guide them. I mean, that's the ideal, that you have somebody who knows what they're talking about guiding them.
Right.
Unfortunately, the internet creates a scenario where everyone is worth listening to.
Right.
Everyone is worth believing. And there's nothing that separates them but a click of the button. And you basically, what happens is that you become like a shopper. We say this about people in the States, or Christians shop, what do you call it, where they go around from church to church to shop.
Yeah, like kind of like buffet style, or yeah, right.
Yeah, where they kind of like go with a little grocery cart and they go around. Oh, I'll take that. And I'll take that. And I'll take that. Well, that's what people are doing on the internet, even in the Orthodox community.
Sure. Yeah, and it kind of takes it out of the context of the kind of lived communal,
right,
expression of Orthodoxy, and it's that's interesting. That's an interesting dynamic. Just the comparing and contrasting, sort of like sources of knowledge, right? Sources of, the internet has sort of become our wise sage, right? And then it also, conversely, it turns not wise people into wise sages.
Well, it's funny because it reminds me of the Hindu theological belief that all their gods are actually all one God, and that God has many, many faces.
Mm-hmm.
Which, okay, I'm not well versed in Hindu theology, but look, on the surface, that sounds like a God with a lot of personalities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A God who doesn't have one sort of person, like he's kind of all over the place.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're sort of relating that to this notion that there are a lot of personalities, but not persons, basically, like a lot of.
Basically.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's actually a really interesting approach. Thinking about it on that level, is that sort of like these kind of paper thin personalities kind of floating around in the ether, and then where's the substance? Where's the
And I feel like it's snowballing. Honestly, it's just going. But there's a positive to all this too. It's not just all negative.
Sure.
But even within that positive, I think that there is also negatives. So the positive is that kids, mainly kids, but not just kids, who would have never have heard of Orthodoxy,
right,
before the internet, never would have, never, are now discovering it, and are learning and reading and watching our videos and watching whoever else. And there are good theologians on the internet. It's not like they're not. There aren't. So that's really good. I mean, that's why we do it. That's why I do it, But I think the problem is that because they're young and because of all the stuff I said before that, they kind of go along with whatever they hear and whatever they, we had a problem. We have a thing here in Serbia with this schismatic bishop.
Okay.
Who just died.
Okay.
And he was a schismatic in the sense that, okay, what happened with him is that he was thrown out, and it may have been unfair.
Yeah.
But instead of accepting that as a monk, as a
right,
and remaining a monk, because they made him a monk.
I see.
He continued to be a bishop and ordained people and continued to do sacraments, and essentially,
you mean they made him a monk, meaning they stripped him of his episcopal
yes, he was stripped of, right. He was stripped of his he was stripped of it for some sort of money thing,
sure, whatever it was,
whatever. But like I said, instead of like accepting that, like Saint Nectarios or Saint John Chrysostom or whoever, he continued to be a bishop. Well, a lone bishop, but he continued and ordained other bishops and essentially created a schism in the Serbian church. But what happens is that there are some people here that are devoted to him.
Right.
They're devoted to him, and they think he's this holy person. And they go online. They make friends with some of the people online. Those people hear about him. They start posting about him when he dies. Oh, this holy man died. But he's a schismatic bishop. And so you see where that line, that very thin space where real and not real, or truth and not and untruth, suddenly become irrelevant.
Right.
That's the internet.
Right. Yeah, that's very challenging, very confusing,
and very heavy.
Right, and it's all on my computer.
Well, it's somewhere.
Not on my computer, but it's I access it via my computer. It's
it's a lot to think about. Really, it's actually a lot to think about. We could probably do forever podcasts on just this. But actually, this is a perfect topic because I've had this on my mind for months now.
Yep. It's I mean, I think for me, one of the challenges is the outwardness of it all, in that it creates, I'm a limited being, right? I'm a human being with a limited capacity to know, a limited capacity to focus on on certain things, right? I mean, and those limitations sort of mean that as much as I'd like to think that the internet is this sort of universal, this access point to universal knowledge,
right?
It actually isn't, because I'm still just as limited as I ever was being a human being, and so I'm just focusing on, rather than focusing on so many more things, I'm actually just focusing on different things.
Yeah.
So like it's kind of like, and I think this question of local versus like global is a good one. I mean, my personal experience was when COVID hit, like when it like back in March, I was actually in Greece, and leading this pilgrimage with college students, and then and like when everything sort of unraveled, we were still there. So and then the travel ban and everything, like we didn't know if we were going to be able to come back. So it was all very kind of traumatic and in a certain level. I mean, it just kind of like, it was really very shaking, shook my sense of what's going on in the world, and am I ever going to make it back to see my family? And you just don't know what's going on. I mean, it was such a new thing. But I think because it was a very kind of traumatic experience on some level, what it did was it created a lot of anxiety in me and a lot of people, I think. But I think the paradoxical, the counterintuitive, and the unexpected thing that happened is, like, in the midst of the anxiety and the experience of the anxiety, there was a warmth that came out of me and of other people for each other, a warmth and a concern for one another, even just as strangers walking down the street. And, prior to COVID, we'd been living in our little subdivision for, I don't know how long, about a year and a half, I guess, after having moved down here from Boston. We barely knew any of our neighbors at all. Like, we barely knew anybody. We were like, we're on relatively friendly terms with like 2 people. And for whatever reason, like after getting back from Greece, like there was just something opened up with like conversations with a couple, with a few more of the neighbors. A lot, they knew that I was a priest of some sort, and started having some conversations with them and things like that. And there was just something that kind of like drove, like at least initially with COVID, there was something that drove the attention. I think like forced one's attention towards the local, and kind of like said it was almost like things are getting so crazy out there that I'm either going to get totally lost in the craziness, or I have to go more local, within the confines of my own quote unquote limited human experience. And then like in doing that, which was almost like a survival instinct, you actually discover so much more about the local, that you just kind of glossed over because your attention was, elsewhere.
Oh, I mean, it's true. First, when COVID it was warm, nice and warm outside.
Yeah.
And it was like the most I ever saw people outside.
Right. Yeah.
I never
Oh,
saw
yeah.
people walk around as much as I did when COVID, all the restrictions. Well,
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how does that lead to the internet though?
Well, I mean, I guess when life is not too crazy, like when, we're just having our normal everyday problems,
Mm-hmm.
I think we can exist in this fragmented manner, this kind of dispersed manner, this kind of like pseudo universal manner.
Right.
Without much consequence. But then when something, like when some crisis hits us individually or globally, I think it drives us to make a decision about whether we're going to be out there or whether we're going to be in here. Out there in the internet, or in here, in my kind of local.
Yeah, I think that I think that the healthiest sort of society is one where people will talk to each other.
Right.
Not over the internet. They look at each other face to face and discuss stuff. I'm not talking about what we're doing. I'm talking about when I'm typing at somebody.
Sure.
Or I'm just, I don't know, reading a blog or something or watching YouTube video and then commenting underneath it. There's a level of sort of in anonymity,
yeah,
where they feel no reason to be human. And right. that is something where the small, tight-knit community destroys. If you're going to live in a small, whatever,
right.
sort of local thing like you're talking about, you have to be polite to people.
or at least you experience, if whether or not you're polite, you experience more of the direct consequences of your actions more. Yeah.
If you're not polite, then you're going to find out what that means,
exactly. Yeah,
exactly. You're going to have consequences to your actions when you're held accountable by the people around you.
Right.
From the moment you're on the internet and you're this invisible entity going around and hovering and, trolling this and trolling that, well, I don't know. That's toxic. But I think I see your connection. I hope that that's what COVID did. Of course, during the winter months, it's harder to go outside, maybe. But
yeah, I'm not even saying like we talk about like really transform things, or
Well,
hoping for some sort of real change or something? I'm not even thinking on that level as much as just observing the phenomenon, observing like what happened. And I mean, then after that, things got real stale real quick. I mean, we got into the whole mask debate, and then, all the like, civil unrest, and then like, then it's typical human stuff. It's like you experience something very intense, which sort of shakes you awake, right? For like a moment. And then like, because of how short-sighted and fickle we are, like as soon as the intensity of it subsides just infighting. All of a sudden we're back at our infighting.
You remember 9/11? Remember when
Sure.
how they were always saying how everybody was nicer to each other after?
Right. What happened to that, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And I remember when I was a little kid, this is kind of off topic, but we do that. And I remember we had just moved to the States, and I was like 10 and or 11, and it happened. 9/11 happened, and then I remember hearing online, or not online, on TV. Oh, they were referring to people in New York mainly, but people in New York are so much nicer to each other. People say hello, they open the door for each other, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember just kind of my young 10-year-old naive way. I was at school, and we were as a group, as a class, going from one place to the other, and somebody held the door open for me and was like, Americans becoming nice. Just like,
right.
I didn't know anything,
right.
It's just a normal thing people do, but
right. It was evidence of this major transformation.
yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. Oh man. I for me there was a lot. I think the event that took place when COVID first hit. I mean, part of it was where I was. I was in Greece. We were having a pilgrimage, like so there was a dynamic of separation from my family, which kind of scared me in a certain sense, but also like a connection and an intimacy with holiness, of being in this kind of, country with saints and things like that. And I think the event really,
Listen, the event in an Orthodox perspective is really shining a spot, putting the black light on, the beliefs of everybody. Everybody kind of it's been revealing everybody's belief, and
that's it.
And we're mainly, if you actually think about it, we're mainly, but not only, finding that out from the internet.
Right. Right.
Because all the articles, all the whatever, come out on the internet, and so we're seeing all that there, and so in some ways it's good. It's kind of whatever you make it, isn't it? The internet. If you're like me and you're kind of involved, although I try to limit it now, involved in all that stuff, which I'm not a debater. I know myself. I don't like to go out there and fisticuffs, theological fisticuffs. Just not my thing. But it's kind of what you make it. You kind of go where you want to go, and it's like a sandbox. You build whatever you want to build in it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the danger, though, is that it's all relative, and it's all, the mob is sort of deciding who's right and who's wrong, rather than the proper synodal, the way the church, since the first century, since the apostles, Yeah. What's your experience on the internet itself, though? I mean, with COVID, I guess everything's kind of exploded even more, but what?
Yeah. I mean, I sort of have a short list of like websites that I'll visit, and I'll be honest and say that sometimes I'm very intentional. I'm saying, okay, I need to go to this site to do this or whatever. And then other times when I'm really tired and whatever, it just devolves into kind of mindlessly going from one of those websites to the next. So like, it'll be like, YouTube, Facebook, my email, it'll just kind of,
Yeah, I do that too.
I'm not proud of that by any means, but it can often be a mindless activity. It can often be somewhat of a voyeuristic activity, like
Looking
passively viewing other people. And my default setting, quite frankly, is judgment, is
yeah,
to
of
make,
course.
pass judgment. And
Yeah, that's actually one of the other major problems on a more personal level for
Yep.
people, all of us, for me,
Sure.
it becomes this sort of, oh, look at her, oh, look at him, oh, and then you might be right, but I don't know if it's good for you,
That's a very good way of putting it. You might be right, but I don't know if it's
Well,
good.
I've been really like thinking about that lately, because I'm like, look, I'm right,
Right.
but I'm also wrong,
So there's a little song lyric that I was just thinking about this morning, actually. A guy named Willie Mason. He's like a folk kind of acoustic singer-songwriter guy. And it's a good song, but that he writes, I think the chorus is something like, it's a hard hand to hold that is looking for control. It's tempting to fight when you know that you're right.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Just relating that notion of like control to right, to fighting. And I think really that's what it comes, I mean, I don't know what it comes down to, but aren't we all struggling with, being in a situation where
I mean,
we're lacking,
well, yeah, I mean, that's when it, like I go on something in a chat room and I'll see something, it's wrong, but what do I do? It depends on the topic. What do I do? Okay, I don't want to end up in a fight. I'm not going to fight with anybody, but I don't want to end up with a situation where it's becoming a debate where there's a competition to figure out who can beat the other one and prove the other one wrong or something like that, because that's fruitless. And that's actually another topic. We're not going into it. The debating culture, but and that's, listen, overall, like I've said a lot of negative things, but I would say that overall, I think there is a positive to all these people finding and observing Orthodoxy online, right? And even talking to each other about it. I just think that there needs to be more formal catechesis, more formal, local, as you said, local education rather than the internet educating everybody, just the internet.
Right.
You want to watch our videos, please, but also go to your parish, go to a priest, read a good book about the faith. If you're, don't just watch our videos.
Sure.
And I think, or don't just watch Father Panayotti's lectures. If it's that interesting to you, call him. Email him, talk to him in person. Don't just watch it and go to sleep. I mean, watch it, go to sleep, but then go read a book about it. You know what I mean? Like,
sprinkle in a little,
I mean,
sort of local, personal.
Right. And because in the end of the day, it's all about what you put into all of it. If it's going to be this superficial like thing that you kind of like a hobby on the internet, then it's just what it's going to be. But if you're going to make it like your life, then you need to make it your life. And of course, we're all struggling with making it our life. That doesn't end. But you know what I mean.
No, you're right. Yeah. I like that. There's sort of it becomes disconnected from the center of our life.
Yeah, and I don't think that I don't think the fathers, for instance, were quoted all the time nowadays. I think the fathers intended for us to just be online. I don't know what the online then would be. Sending letters, maybe.
Constantly sending letters and
just constantly commenting on people's letters.
Reading a letter and just not responding, but just kind of just judging the person.
Right.
Man, that person's handwriting is just so.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's an interesting time.
It is. It's a weird time. It's a very weird time, and I'm afraid it's only going to get a little weirder before it gets a little more normal.
Yeah. But you see how at least I see how in some of the moments in my life that have been the most seemingly scary and traumatic, almost in the same moment or in the same breath, without expecting it, there's always this unexpected blessing that comes in.
Well, yeah, I can.
I mean, and it's not to say that they're related. Like, it's not to say that the trauma and the blessing are certainly distinct. I don't want to say that something horrible is necessarily a blessing, but
well, I mean, from anything bad, something good can come, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that whole notion, and just I guess not being so afraid of the coming of something negative, that we eliminate the possibility that something positive will come along with it.
And I can relate to that.
Yep.
Tenfold in my own experience. relating actually to COVID.
There we go.
So right. So we know what we're talking about.
Yep. Oh, that's great.
And it was so we all struggle with like these negative thoughts and then the internet adds more negative thoughts and and that's the thing though, isn't it? But well, my mind's shooting in different directions, but I remember how St. Porphyrios used the telephone. Kind of a sort of the start, the prelude to the internet. And he used the telephone to. A great story came out. I witnessed by Athanasius Limassol about his telephone discussion with Father Porphyrios, and how it's like God put a hand in that man's put a phone in that man's hands, and he didn't stop calling people. He was just calling people day and night, saving lives through one phone call at a time.
Yeah. That's something, huh? It's a powerful tool. It's a powerful.
Yeah. Especially in the right hands.
Right, in the right hands. Yep. So, well, there's probably no neat and tidy way to
end tonight's discussion.
Yeah,
I think it's a good time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's some good thoughts for sure.
Yeah.
So.
All right then. Well, I'm happy to be back, definitely. And I look forward to more of these.
Likewise.
Ortho-Battles was a very rich topic that I was I could not wait to sink my teeth into.
Yes, indeed.
And Ortho-Battles in the time of COVID.
Even more exciting.
Even more exciting. Yeah.
It doesn't get much more exciting than that.
No, it doesn't. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Who knows?
You just never know what's going to happen. I mean,
exactly.
My mind is so much on COVID, and then just different things around the church and community and family and all this stuff. And then last night I woke up at like 4 a.m. and I realized I missed a notification saying that there was a tornado warning and that everybody should go down to their basements and shelter in place. And I was just thinking, gosh, first of all, I missed it. But thankfully we didn't actually miss the tornado, but
right.
Or thankfully we did miss the tornado, but it didn't touch down rather. But it just made me think, like, of all the things, like that was not the catastrophe that I was focusing on. I was focusing on all these other things, and then tornado, that could have just taken me out. And I never had any anxiety about it. It's like
you slept through it. You slept through the actual danger.
Right. It was just the real danger was totally off my radar. So
that's really, there's a lot to be said about that. Actually, I can't think of it right now.
Yeah. No. I mean, it's just a funny kind of anecdote. But anyway, so well, until next time.
Indeed.
And
bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody.